Okay, so tonight we're going to do PhotoPills and then a little brief thing about exposing for the moon, uh, depth of field, and that'll lead us right into focus stacking. So, and I'm going to jump right out of this and turn it over to Barney. So give us a second to switch computers. Make sure I unplug the right thing.
Now, do I?
Oh,
You're gonna have to share my screen.
yep,
That,
yep.
am I sharing?
You are. Let us know if you see Barney's screen now. Everybody out there in internet world. Are you sharing yet, Barney?
Yeah.
Do not see
Anybody
it.
seeing it?
No.
If not, I'll
No.
go back and try it again. Share.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Is everybody seeing Barney's screen out there?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes, I see it.
All right.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. So tonight is what I would call PhotoPills 101. And and this is going to be an interactive presentation. So what my plan is to take you through the general menus that are in the PhotoPills app, and then go through a couple of examples as to how to set up a moonrise, a moonset, since those are the easiest things to set up around here. Then you can have a little homework assignment, go off and try and figure some of this stuff out for yourself, because that's how you really learn in my. So let's start from the beginning. There we go. So hopefully everybody's got the PhotoPills app on their phone or on their iPad. If you don't, then go to the appropriate app store. It's about $11, best $11 that you'll ever spend for your photography. I know that it's very confusing, like a lot of things are that have a lot of information packed into them. But I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you'll have enough of a general understanding that you can go ahead and put together a plan for sometime in the future, and figure out where the best location for sunrise, sunset, meteor shower observation, etc. is in this area. And I'll use some examples, some site examples that we'll start with here in the area, like Snow King and Teton Village. When I was going through this, I was thinking there are some basic meanings I think we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. Golden hour, the golden blue hour, in terms of where the sun is in relationship to the horizon, how high it is, how low it is. And because you're going to be using those numbers in PhotoPills to understand whether you're in blue hour or golden hour, or at least help augment that. Azimuth, understand what azimuth is, elevation, and galactic center. Well, let's start with the golden hour and the blue hour. Here's a very simple representation that I pinched from one of the PhotoPills video. And basically it shows you that the golden hour is when the sun is 6 degrees above the horizon to 4 degrees below the horizon. And that's where we typically work a lot of our time. I'm sorry, and then the blue hour is when we're below that horizon. Of course, we're getting that nice reflection of the sunlight off of the sky. So keep that in mind. -4 to 6 degrees is when you're working around the sun and the horizon. That's where you want to be. Azimuth Some folks get really confused about, well, what the azimuth is. Basically, remember you have your simple compass and you look at a heading, that's your azimuth. East is 90 degrees, south is 180 degrees, west is 270, and of course, north is 0. So that's just the horizontal representation off of north as to what that angle is. So it's once you think about it in those terms, I think it's pretty simple. And finally, the galactic center. This is the center of the Milky Way, which is, of course, one of the prime targets that we have when we're shooting the Milky Way. And it's usually visible from springtime to sometime, the beginning of October, mid-October, and then it disappears because of our rotation around the sun. So that is where we're going to go now is into the PhotoPills app. So if you have it on your phone or your iPad, please go ahead and open it up. I'm going to go ahead and switch.
You need to stop sharing, yeah.
Stop sharing. And so now I have to go and share off of this, don't I? Share. Screen. Okay.
And
You
you're
getting
gonna have to
anything yet?
Well, you're gonna have to unplug.
Well, we should have something on on our screen to begin with. So everything on your screen, including notifications, will be recorded. Yes. Okay, so David?
Are you? I did make you.
Only the host can share in this meeting. You make me the host.
I thought I did. You are now. Yep.
Stay tired. Stay. Good boy, stay.
Okay. We're not getting any feedback, are we?
Yes.
Unless you turn the speaker on your computer off, it's still live. Yes.
But you're not sharing yet.
Okay.
I think you're gonna have to.
We're getting sound from there. Can you turn that down? Is it TV? Is that better? Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're not sharing. No, it's not coming through here.
Share. Screen. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Muted.
But we're not.
How about now?
It was coming through a while ago. All right. You're hitting share, right?
Share.
Yeah. It says muted though.
Yeah, but the problem is he's not showing up for any of the online people.
So, I mean, I'm just hitting screen.
And you're hitting the share button.
And I get this.
Hey, now it's working.
Now,
Yep.
Hmm.
okay. So is this working?
Yep.
Can you get any, are people on the outside hearing this?
Somebody online, let us know. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear Barney.
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear, I can hear you and I can
Okay.
see you.
Yep, okay.
All right.
I can hear it still.
I can hear.
want to point everybody towards this PhotoPills user guide. It's a free download that you can get from the PhotoPills site. It's very, very inclusive. And the great thing about this is they have 3 to 5 minute videos on each and every section and menu. So there are a lot of them in there, but I'm obviously not gonna go through this in any sort of detail, but you can see from the contents of it, you can jump to any particular section, and then you can read their explanation, which actually is very well done. And then there's also a little video that goes along with it. So I wanted to point you in that direction to keep in mind. Okay, so let's go to the PhotoPills app itself. And if you have this open on your screen, I'm working off of an iPad in a horizontal mode, so my screen's gonna look a little bit different, but off of your iPhone or Android in a horizontal orientation, it will look very similar. You may just have to scroll down a little bit further. Starting at the very top, there are 3 main panels. There's My Stuff, which of course will be your stuff eventually, where you have your plans and points of interest and various settings and the like. And then in the middle section is where we're going to spend just about all of our time here, and we're going to go through these individual menus or points so that you can get an idea of what is behind all of these. And finally, in the Academy section, this is their where you can go and hit some of their video tutorials and how-to articles and the like, and various other stuff if you're into that. Let's focus on the pills, which is the center. The planner is where we're going to spend the majority of our time, and on your iPhone, the menu that you're seeing on the far right-hand side should be up on top, and you'll be able to move to each of these individual settings by just flipping with your finger and the like. What I want to do is, since we're going to spend a lot of time on the planner, let's just briefly go through the rest of these. When you hit the sun indication for the day and time that you have set, which is today, Monday, it gives you all the various times for golden hour, blue hour, nautical twilight, true nighttime, so you can really get into your nighttime photography. And it also shows where the galactic center is and the elevation of that galactic center above the horizon at that specific time that you have, well, in this case, at 922. When we get into the planner, you'll be able to see that elevation changes over time as the galactic center sets. If you use the arrows on either side, you can advance through the major settings of the time of day, and you have all the appropriate settings that you see as far as the sun is concerned. Let's go back to the moon. I don't do a lot of work around the sun. I just use that for sunrise and sunset for those that are doing more incorporating their sun in their images. They'll obviously will spend a little bit more time. This to me is very, very useful. September 9th, we're in the waxing crescent phase, 38%. And you can see that the moon rises at 142 and sets at 1026. You have all the other pieces of information that you saw on the previous screen. One of the nice things about this is if you look down at the very, very bottom and you go to calendar and you press calendar, now you have the month and you have the phases of the moon. And you can see that on the 9th, where we're at right now, but if you look on the 17th, that's the day of the full moon, and there's a yellow circle around it, and that's an indication that that's a super moon. And we're fortunate that we have a super moon this month, and then look on the 17th of October, we have another super moon. So this is, for me, this is very, very useful, and this is one of the first places I go looking for doing my nighttime work, because I always like to work in like from the quarter moon through the new moon. It gives me just enough light to light up the landscape, and then also give me some good astro work to boot. So that's.
Just one minute. Can you ask the audience here, but also the audience through Zoom, how many people are using an iPhone compared to an iPad? Because when I try to find the calendar, I can't find it on the iPad.
I have trouble too. It's at the bottom. It's very.
Okay, so let me go this way. Okay, so that.
Maybe repeat the question for everybody
Okay,
on the.
so the question is, where is the calendar? Okay, so look down here. Okay, you're still in the planner. Okay, so you want to go to moon. Okay, and now you've got the calendar. Okay.
Nothing's easy.
Well, the improvements that they've made in this app over the years is just remarkable, because a lot of times if you get into trouble, you can just touch something and it will take you there. I mean, it's just it is indeed remarkable what they've done. So you have the same sort of being able to advance by the day, or in the calendar, you can jump to a specific day that you might want to shoot or plan for a shoot. Like this is for the supermoon, and it will give you all the relevant information to begin your planning process. Oops, what happened? Okay, so I've got you sitting up there. Exposure. I'm not going to spend too much time going through these. I just want you to be aware of what they are. And so this is, if you're into using for example, neutral density gradient filters, 6-stop or 10-stop, and you want to figure out, well, I've got this exposure without this in front of my lens. I put a 10-stop. What do I need to make the adjustment? This is where you would go through and you would fill in this information. And the way you do that is by just, for example, in the upper left-hand corner, aperture f8, you just touch that, and then you can dial in whatever aperture. Now, this is your test setting, so this is your initial settings when you're out in the field, and say, oh, okay, I'm going to shoot this at 5.6, and you know, and I do that, and the camera gives me an exposure setting of 2/50th of a second at an ISO of 64. Well, how does that translate if I want to use a 10-stop? The equivalent settings then are to use at f8 ISO 100 10 stops. I need to do an exposure of 5 seconds. That's what that shutter speed is for. And you can change these and determine if you want to change the ISO or if you want to change the aperture. You can do all of that. I usually just when you're doing these longer exposures in the field, then typically with you're keeping everything the same, but you're just adjusting your time. And so this is just a simple calculator to get you to do that. I wish that I could get you off of my screen,
Yep,
David.
sorry. I'll try and move that.
So let me see if I can just move. Yeah, I can move you
Oh, okay.
out of the way. There you go. Okay. Depth of field, we're going to talk about this. This is to help you determine what your hyperfocal distance is. I'm going to show you an example of this and how we can use this in our planning. Again, just like in the previous, if you need to change your aperture, you just touch it and you can change it. If you need to change your focal length, you can change that and type in whatever it is that you want. If you have a teleconverter that you're going to be using with that, you can dial that in for whatever setting that is, and it will go ahead and calculate all of that information for you. So that's what the classic depth of field is all about. Field of view, similar sort of thing. I know this gets a little bit technical, but this is also quite useful. Your field of view when you're doing panoramas and you want to figure out how far you need to move the camera around, because during the day it's very easy to overlap 50%, but at night it's very difficult to overlap 50% unless you have some settings on your tripod head that allows you to move in increments of degrees. And so in order to figure that out, you would use this field of, one of the things that you would use for this field of view is to understand what that angle is, that whether it's a horizontal or portrait or a landscape is, in order to get your proper overlap. I also want to point out that these internal menus are very camera specific. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that I have the Z9 typed in, but they have all the different cameras listed. So you find your camera or cameras, and then you can go ahead and designate that, and then since the sensors and the cameras typically change from camera to camera, that's taken into account in all of these calculations.
Is that just under field of view? You choose your camera?
It actually is in a number of different places. So you'll see this show up again and again. The depth of field table, here's an example. Again, this is camera specific. And also focal length, and of course, you can go ahead and change this to whatever you want. To your specifics. And this is more of for me, it's more of an educational tool to understand that if I'm shooting an elk at with a 500 and a full frame sensor that's in the Z9, and I'm about 200 feet out, and I'm shooting it at 5.6 because I don't have a super fast lens. I know that my depth of field is between 192 and 208 feet. So now, a lot of times that really doesn't matter because I'm going to be focused on the eye anyway. Okay, but it just gives you an idea of what your field of view is, or your depth of field is, a relationship to the different lenses that you have. And for me, that was very educational to do that with a 14 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and on up. So that's the depth of field. There's a same sort of table, again, camera specific for your hyperfocal distance. If you're worried about doing that in your landscape work, I will show you how to use the hyperfocal distance for your planning shots, because it will show up in the map if you go ahead and activate that. Typically, it's not an issue for us because we're shooting. Again, we're shooting landscapes or moon sets at a distance here, and they're not necessarily close up. The night and reality is an extraordinarily useful tool. And when you're planning your shoot, especially around here, you can go to the location and you can pull up the augmented reality, the night augmented reality, and basically point it at your object. And when you point it at your object, you'll see for the specific time and date that you have set where celestial objects are and where the moon is, or where the sun is. And so you'll be able to validate your plan that the moon isn't sitting behind Sleeping Indian, it's actually on the nose of Sleeping Indian, okay? And those, I encourage people to do that, especially when they're first learning. I mean, I do it now all the time for an important shoot. So if I was going to go out and shoot the super moon, that's only going to happen one time for me. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go out and do an augmented reality shot during the day or even the week before, because you can dial in any time or date that you want, and you can do that by, again, going back to the Moon app, the calendar, hit the super moon, and your date is now set. Okay.
So you're saying that if we choose the 17th of September, and then we go to augmented reality, we'll be able to see where the moon will be at.
That's right, and what you'll be able to do is you move with your finger, you can move it across the screen to change the time.
Okay.
So in your plan, you will want
If we
to,
want 8 p.m. or something, we can use our finger to.
and then you'll see where the moon is at 8 p.m. Okay, and I think it's at 8:26 or so. It will be right in the general vicinity of Sleeping Indian, and it should be above Sleeping Indian. And you can say, okay, well, I don't want to be right there. I'm going to be
And
somewhere.
by looking at the augmented reality, we'll be able to see that when Sleeping Indian is obstructing the moon,
Yes.
when the moon's below.
Yes, yeah. And those other lines that you were seeing, those are the directions of the star trails. Okay, so that gives you some additional information. Meteor showers, this is actually very, very useful for planning meteor showers. I love to shoot meteor showers out here because we have such dark skies. I did Geminids in December out at Oxbow. I had no place myself. Surprise, surprise. -15 degrees, nobody else is around. And then I was over at Great Basin and shot the Pursuit meteor shower. And we were actually treated to having a giant aurora that actually knocked out a lot of the visible meteors that we saw. But that was pretty spectacular. But here's where they're listed. And the other thing that I want to point out, now I just hit the Geminids December 13th at 6:03 is the projected max. And if you look down and you'll see that the Geminids this time around only has 2 bars, which means it's not going to be a very good show. And that's because of look where the moon is. You're at 95.4%. So it's really going to knock out a lot of the visibles. But if you look down further, January 3rd at 6:12, you've got a 15% moon, and the quadrids. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good show out here. So this is. I'm not going to go into too much more of this. The graphs and all on the right-hand side show when the peaks are and when to have your camera really rolling. It's a lot of information here. I just wanted to point out to you that this is available. Star trails. We always wonder, well, how long should I shoot star trails for? Here's where you can go in and you can play around with this and move just by touching the screen and just moving it around. You can see, okay, that's if I shoot for 2 hours and 15 minutes, I'm going to have those kinds of star trails, which is usually pretty good. Okay. Last one I'm going to spend any time on really, because I'm not going to do the time lapse timers, subject distance or focal length match. I think those are ones that are very, very specific. The timer is just a timer, and that's all it is. But spot stars, I think, is something that's very, very useful. Again, you dial in what camera you're going to be using, what the focal length is, what your aperture is, and I usually will be shooting at 5.6 and not at 2.8 or 4.0. And the reason for that, for those of you that don't do too much nighttime photography, is out here our skies are so dark. I mean, we have Bortle 2 skies that if you shoot at 2.8, you're going to have a gazillion stars in your image. And then you have to do some minimization in Photoshop in order to get it down so it doesn't look so congested. If you shoot at 5.6, for example, or at f4 or 5.6, you'll have much fewer stars because the dimmer ones will not show up. And it's very important you get the right exposure with your stars if you want to get the color of the stars. Otherwise, you're going to have everything all white, and you don't want that. But how long should you shoot for? Well, you know, there was the old 500 rule, which then got revised to the 400 rule, and then to the 300 rule. And I don't know many people that use that anymore. Most people use the NPF rule, and this is to get spot stars. And so after you set your focal length, after you set your aperture, then don't worry about the declination. That's really irrelevant for what we're doing at this point in time. And then there's the accuracy, barely noticeable. So if you're posting to social media, or you're making an 8x10 or even a 13 by 19 inch print, you're probably not going to see any star trails. If you're making things larger, then you may start to see a little bit of drift. And when you do that, you can see that you can at 20 millimeters at f6, you can get away with about a 16-second exposure. If you want to get actual spot stars, then that almost gets cut. That pretty much gets cut in half to about 8 seconds. And so if you're out in the field and you want spot stars, you know that you can't go for longer than 8 seconds. So what do you have to do at 5.6? You got to up your ISO. And we are so fortunate right now to have things like Lightroom and denoise, Topaz denoise, to eliminate a lot of the noise that's generated. So this is a very useful tool, and I encourage anybody that's going out in the field to do Milky Way Milky Way exposures to use this, and either use the spot stars for accurate or the barely noticeable. So that kind of takes us through this part of this. Let's go to the planner, because this is where we're going to spend our time. And let me kind of get ourselves oriented back to, I'm sorry, wrong. Okay, so what I just did was reoriented the map to our current location here, at least in Jackson. And you can see there we are, downtown Jackson, and the like. And we're gonna come back to this map and move these pins around a lot. But initially, I want to start off at this very, very top panel. And you can move this top panel by just touching it with your finger and then moving it left and right. And there are, I think, 6 or 7 panels here. This first panel has to do with the shadow length. It's pretty much irrelevant to what we do out here. If you're shooting in a major city, or Washington, D.C., for example, and you have the Washington Monument, you want to know where that shadow is, you would use this. And there's a very nice video that they have in the PhotoPills manual that explains that very, very simply. This next panel, which we refer to as panel 2, is extremely important, because this is where we're going to set our pins for our location and for the object that we want to put in it. The red pin is where our camera is going to be. The black pin is going to be where the object is. And when you set that, for example, if you don't have this, some of you may have this sort of a screen where you just have the red pin, and it's just like, well, how do I get the black pin? You get the black pin by just touching the red black icon up there, and the black pin will appear somewhere on your screen. Okay, so how do I move it if I want to put this over on Miller Cabin? Well, you just touch that black pin, it comes up out of the air, and you just move it over to Miller Cabin and let go, and there it is. And I'll blow that up, and there you have it.
I don't see that. I don't understand that.
Okay, so you have the red and you have a red and black pin on your screen. Okay, so touch the black pin with your finger, and it should come up.
The line?
No, the pin itself, the black pin, this right here.
Oh, I don't have that. Okay. Got it.
Okay, so what you do is at the very top, this little icon right here that I'm touching.
The
Okay,
Miller Cabin. Okay.
okay, so now you have your black pin. pick up your black pen and place it over on Miller Cabin.
The black, I don't understand. The black, right?
So there's, see this icon here, and it's red and black. If you tap,
Oh, she's the one.
if you.
Yeah, I was the one that,
Is,
that was me.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, you're looking for the red and black pin.
It's the second
Tap-
panel.
Tap
Oh,
this,
okay.
tap that. Yeah,
Okay.
and there you have a black pin down here, and a red pin.
So I moved the black pen to where I want it to be.
Yes,
So,
just touch it.
like the sleeping Indian?
Yeah, if you.
If your black pin is halfway across the United States, it's the,
Tap the
you know,
black
way
pin
to
pull.
move it
Yeah.
to Miller
That
Cabin.
pops up.
Yes, just go ahead and expand your map, Charlotte. Just make your map bigger so that you can see Jackson. Okay,
Well, I can see Jackson.
okay. So you want to see like the details of the town.
I can.
Okay, all right. Now, do you
But I
see?
think my black pen is over in North
Okay,
Carolina.
so turn your black pen off. Turn it off at the top, up here,
Sleeping Indian.
up here.
Yeah,
Remember? Turn it off, make it disappear, and then touch it again and it will reappear on your screen.
oh, I don't.
Okay, so you do that,
Mhm.
and do that, and then there's your black
There's
pen.
my- Thank you.
Okay.
I agree with that.
All right? So I just picked it up and I moved it over to Miller Cabin, okay? Now, once you have it there, if you touch it briefly, you'll see, information come up.
There's your black.
And there's the GPS coordinates. It's also telling you the altitude of where that black pin is.
You can touch the black.
And then also what the difference in the height is and the angle between downtown Jackson, where we're located, and Miller Cabin. Okay,
And your Miller Cabin has that little blue thing because you've made it a point of interest. Because I don't have that.
I must have.
Yeah, I think you made it a point of interest.
I don't remember doing it, but I might have
It's
sometime.
on mine for some reason. Yeah, it's on mine too.
Is it? Oh, it's not on mine, maybe on the other line.
So these, that information is available. It's also available on the red pin. Tells you what your altitude is and what your coordinates are. Okay,
So if you wanted to take a picture of the moon on September 17th over Sleeping Indian,
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We still got a ways to go before we hit that, but we're gonna get there.
Well, I put my black spot on Sleeping Indian.
Okay, so look at, look again on that panel up above where the red and black is, and you see the distance. That's the distance between the two pins. The direction, so we're 60 degrees off of 60.8 degrees off of north. That's your azimuth, and then the altitude difference. So it's 13 feet. Now, that's the difference off of the black pin from where we are. Okay,
So we're 13 feet lower, basically, is what it's saying.
it says that the Miller Cabin is 13 feet lower than where
Okay.
we are right now. That's what that's saying, okay? And we're gonna make use of the moon height. But at this point in time, it's just telling us that the moon height the moon is very high and very small if we were trying to incorporate it into some type of an image at this point. Let's move this over so that now you see the sun and moon. Again, this is the top panel. Okay, and if you touch that icon for which was blue and now is golden blue, that gives you when you touch this around, you can see that the lines on the screen change, okay? And this is an indication of where the sun is and where the moon is and where the sunrise is and where the sunset is. Okay? And so you can look at the map now, and you'll see that there's a thick yellow line going out almost horizontal, and that's the sunrise line. Okay?
Mm.
And how you can remember that, because it took me a while to kind of remember this color code, is look at not at the sun and moon panel, but the next one over, which shows you the super moon with the golden ring around it. And you can see that the up arrow for sunrise is yellow, the down arrow is red for sunset. The moon set is dark blue, and the moonrise is light blue. And
Arnie, I'm on the wrong day. Isn't there a real quick way to get on the present time and day?
yes, there is. It's kind of irrelevant as to where, what day you're on, really, at this point.
But in order to follow along,
Oh, okay. See,
I'm on February the 11th, and I want to be on today.
Yeah.
I just touched something, maybe a shortcut, but I don't know what it is.
you are looking at,
Planner.
Go to the bottom three, if you dots, the last three dots on the bottom.
Yeah,
click those, and date comes up,
Date.
and then go to now.
there you go. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Pam.
So this is, I'm just gonna move this up to the middle. This is where you can now, on the panel below the map, you can see the moon line and the sun line, the blue line or the turquoise line, and then the sun line obviously is the yellow line. And if you take your finger and you move that, you're moving time, and at the same time you're seeing where the different shades, or the twilight, sunrise, moonrise is all the way around. So that's how you can orient yourself. So if you want the sun, you want to shoot with the sun in a particular place, then you're going to want it there, and that time is 12:09 p.m. Okay. Typically you're going to be doing more work with the moon, and you're going to want it somewhere in the blue hour or in the twilight, and so you're going to go ahead and set that line to that specific time, and then move your locations around in order to have that line intersect with whatever object you want to follow. I know that's a lot said in one sentence, but it'll get a lot easier if we actually get into it. So, but you can look over here and you can see on the sun and moon settings, you have your times as to what the sunrise is, what the sunset is, and the like. Let's move on to the next. This is more of an information setting. I really don't pay too much attention to these panels, because I'm getting that information off of the timestamp down below, as you can see the shades going from orange into deep blue. But here are the specific times, and for general planning, it's always nice to be able to say, okay, I want to be out there, an hour before nautical sunset or astronomical sunset, because it's going to be really, really dark. Okay, scoot over another couple of panels, and now you're going to see what time the galactic center is visible, and in what direction it is and how high it is off of the horizon. So you can see for our time here, that the galactic center is visible from 9:05 to 11:16. It is about 14 degrees off the horizon, so it's not that high. So that means that you're going to have to be in pretty much of an open field area if you want to capture the galactic center. If you have any kind of a mountain range or anything like that, it's probably going to be hidden behind it a little bit. But there are ways to actually see that on this map. Finally, these last two are actually quite useful. And if you're interested in photographing partial lunar eclipse, then that's also taking place on the 17th. Okay, and I don't have any eclipse loaded here. I can. So let me show you what I just did. I'm interested in seeing if there. I'm going to plan on doing a shot of a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse or a partial lunar eclipse. You have something in your mind you want to do. So if you look over in the lower right-hand corner, there's like two sheets of paper, a white button. Press that, and you get this screen popping up. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about the screen in a little bit, but if you go all the way down to the bottom and you see eclipse, and right now I don't have anything turned on as far as eclipse goes, but if I touch that button, then I get a whole list of when these different eclipses are. Now, those are old, but look, on 9/17, we have a partial eclipse. And so I just touched that and now have that activated for my planning. And you notice that as soon as I hit done, then things changed up on top. We now have a partial lunar eclipse showing on the 17th of this month, and it gives you the brightness, the magnitude of it, and the like. It's a partial, but the one of the interesting things about this is on the panel on the right hand side, you can see that it has the different phases of the eclipse, and so you can adjust your as you move your timeline, you can see how the shadow of the Earth is passing over the moon to give you that partial eclipse. And what this panel up here is telling us is that at 8:45, that's going to be the maximum. So you're supposed to be able to just touch that and have it go to 8:45. I can't get it to work on this iPad, so I just kind of dial it in. And so I think this is very useful for your planning because it helps you determine how much ambient light there is to photograph the foreground if you want to include a partial lunar eclipse in your image. Okay. So that's that's part of the, I think a little bit more advanced planning sessions, but I just wanted to go ahead and point that out to you. I'm gonna go back to panel number 2 and just leave us set up there. If we look down at the very bottom panel, you can use the find button to find specific locations. They have a list of thousands of them from all over the world. Sleeping Indian. This is the find button.
Where's the list? I don't see
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself with this.
Where's the
Let's-
button?
Let's leave the find button. Let's leave the find button alone. The next 2 buttons are augmented reality. We talked a little bit about the night augmented reality, the daytime augmented reality. So if you just go out into the field and you just touch the augmented reality, then it will engage your camera. And then because of the orientation of where you are, you'll be able to see where the horizon is and where various objects are. It's a really fun thing to play around with, and you definitely need to have this in your holster. The next button is the load program, is to load, and this has plan, the point of interest. You can put in GPS coordinates, or if you have a photo that is geotagged, you can press in your phone or your iPad. You can press that and it will go ahead and identify those coordinates and then take your map to that location. When you're for your point of interests, these are things that you will just accumulate over time. There are a number of them there's some of them that are in here already, but for example, Shiprock by Green River down in Dinosaur is one place. Snow King Mountain, places that you want to use as a general reference starting point. I use Snow King as kind of like my downtown point of interest, and the map just goes directly to that. Plan. Once you generate your plan, you're going to save it, and then this is where it will show up with whatever name that you so designate, and the date, and the time that plan is designated for. So like for the part lunar eclipse, I did one at 8:45 for 9/17. And then the moon set over Rendezvous Mountain at 6:30 a.m. and that's one that we're going to actually do. We're going to construct here in just a few minutes. Save button. That's pretty much self-explanatory. You want to save your plan, you hit that. The date button is if you want to go to a specific date. And you're not using the moon function or one of these other calendar functions in order to get you there, that's how you can go ahead and set it. I'm not going to deal with altitudes or horizon. Those are I really haven't used them. I don't understand them, so I can't really explain them to you at this point in time. The action is the very last one, and this is where you go ahead and you can add your plan to your calendar, which I think is very helpful because I'm very forgetful to do that. Or I can email it or send it by text to David or to somebody else so that they have it. If they have PhotoPills, they'll be able to load that plan directly into PhotoPills and then modify it or save it as they see fit. Okay. How are we doing on time?
7:30.
Okay. So I think it's important that we go ahead and run through at least one plan. So you have an opportunity to do that. And as I said, I think I said earlier on, I find sunrises around here to be, I want sunrise and I want the light on the mountains, or on the barn or something like that. And I'm not shooting more in the direction of the direction of the sun. I've been thinking about, different places to try. And so if we want to do on the 17th with a full moon, and we want to do a moon set over Rendezvous Mountain. So a moon set over Rendezvous Mountain. Okay. On the 17th or the 18th, and typically the day before and the day after a full moon are the best days to shoot. Yeah, because especially the day after, because you have more ambient light to light up your foreground.
Because the moon.
Because the sun is up a little bit higher in the horizon, giving you a lot of ambient light, and yet the moon hasn't quite set yet. Okay, so if you go back to the map that we were at, okay, what we need to do is we need to pick up the red pin and we need to put it somewhere around the Teton village. So I'm going to touch the red pin. I'm going to move it up to around the Teton village, and then I'm just going to bring up my map a little bit here. Now, I made this map bigger, and of course, I can't see my black pin now, right? So how do I get the black pin? Well, I can make it smaller and bring the black pin up and like, or I could just turn it off by hitting the black and red pins up above and then turn it back on again. It appears on the screen. And now
I'm somehow in Las Vegas. How I got there. How do I get here?
if you go, you see the little cross, the little plus sign?
Yeah.
Okay, touch that. And then the far left-hand button, you see the little arrowhead with the pin sticking out of it?
Yeah.
Touch that. It should bring you back to Jackson, okay?
Yes.
So now you want to move your pin out to Teton Village.
The black pin.
You want to use your red, put your red pin out there.
Because we're going to be having our camera out shooting from Teton Village.
Right.
Okay.
The red pin is the camera.
Oh,
And-
okay, where am I moving the red? I'm moving-
Somewhere around Teton. It doesn't have to be any specific, just in the general vicinity of Teton Village. Okay. All right. Now you got to move your black pin.
But my black pen is in Las Vegas. I don't know.
Okay, so remember, come up here and touch the red and black pin on the top menu.
Okay,
Turns it off, turn it back on again now,
okay.
and now you can go ahead and move it.
Oh.
Okay. Now, for that, you want to put it up, we're going to put it up on Corbett's Caddy. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and you can just make your screen larger and place your black pin up there.
How do I find focus?
Make your screen larger and it should show up.
That's one of those little blue things.
So once we have that, let me know when you have that.
It doesn't say purpose,
If you keep zooming in, it will eventually.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the tapping.
So if you squeeze it closed, you might probably.
I can squeeze it open or open more. I'm not feet. Well, my writing feet, so.
Okay.
You want the black on Corbett's?
General, it doesn't have to be exact. I mean, just for what we're doing, I mean, because otherwise it'll just,
Kind of a peak would be like above running, I mean, Corbett's would be above.
But Rendezvous Peak's actually south of
So there's your.
where you want to be, so.
I mean, Corbett's is, since it's a landmark, it just,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
shows up. That's
it shows up.
Yeah.
So, now, does everybody have the full moon set up on their, for the 17th?
The date, do we have the
Yes.
right date?
Do you have the right date? And so scoot across the top and you see the moon setting. You should have the moon with a orange circle around it. Okay? It is important that we're on the same date.
Right.
Okay, let me go back to here.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, now you can see as you play around with moving the time bar around, you can see where the moonrise and the moon set is. Okay, and you see that dark blue line? See that dark blue, this, I'm gonna, that dark blue line right there, that's where the moon is, that's where the moon's gonna be setting. And so the moon is not gonna be setting over Corbett's. So how do we get the moon to set over Corbett's?
We have to move ourselves right.
We have to move ourselves, right, and so we move ourselves up a ways, and well, we're still not there. I went out to Granite Canyon. I'm going to go out to the trailhead, and you can see now if I'm at the Granite Canyon trailhead, then moonset is on the other side of Rendezvous, and so now I'm going to move this around to the azimuth of that white line, and you can see that, oh, we're getting some good morning light, right? And I will be able to, the moon will be in the right position, but notice, this is critical. Notice that the line is dotted, okay?
That means there's an obstruction.
That means there's an obstruction. So, if I'm a little bit, I'd be able to see the moon a little bit to the south of it, but it's not going to be over. So what do we have to do? We got to move again. And so we move a little bit further out. And then we check it again, and look, that line is solid. And so I have a solid line. Now this is where it gets tricky, and where we have to, we know our place. Now you can move this around to, place it on the road and the like, but we also know that when we get down Moose Wilson Road, we're going to run into trees and the like. So It's where, this is where it's useful to just kind of blow the map up a little bit, know your routine, know your landscape. And plan on going out there ahead of time with the augmented reality and say, is this gonna work, or am I gonna have a bloody, tree right where I need to be, okay? When people are doing these, and you see these videos of people doing these in the city, well, it's pretty easy because they have streets and they have building heights and everything is pretty much fixed. Out here, and it's part of the map. Out here, the trees are not part of the map. We just have to go and find them. So you can see now, if we move that pin out, now all of a sudden we've got the proper line to I'm just calling it rendezvous with the moon in the proper location. Now, to fine tune this, if you press and hold the timeline, it will change to what you see on the screen. And this is to allow very fine adjustments in your timeline to move that line right over where you want to be. So I know it at this particular location, at those GPS coordinates, at 6:09, I'm going to be able to see the moon right over rendezvous. Okay. So that is one of those are the key findings and you can do this from this location, from Teton Village. You can go and it's Sheep Mountain, isn't it? Isn't that Sleeping Indian?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I mean I've got that plan already in place to do that. But you can, from Teton Village, right outside where the main entrance is, you can set up your tripod right in there, shoot towards Sleeping Indian on the 17th, and on moonrise you're going to have the moon over Sleeping Indian.
Can I ask you a question? How much does the moon change day by day? Like if you went the day before to the spot where you wanted to take a picture of the moon, is it going to be close to where it was the day before?
Well, remember, it's, and John, help me out here, this is typically about an hour, it shifts about an hour.
That's a good average.
Yeah, that's a good average. And so one of the things that you can do with this is, and I've actually done this to try and understand how the moon set is moving in relationship, is just go ahead and do day by day, and just say, okay, here's Teton Village, here's the moon set on this particular day. Let me advance it 2 days and see what it looks like. You'll see where it changes.
Yeah, and the time it sets and rises changes, but it also moves slightly on the horizon back and forth.
Yeah.
So if you go out there and do the augmented reality, you can scroll to the day you want to be there. So.
I know that we want to move on and we
Yeah.
want to do depth of field and things like that. So let me just show you two other aspects of this, which I think are important to know, and that is field of view and depth of field. David's going to cover, but for us, it's pretty much, we're shooting so far away that our depth of field is it's going to be there. But if you touch on the lower right icon where they have the double sheets of paper like layers, you pull that up and you F of V. If you touch that, okay, and then you hit done, what you will see is you have this panel that appears up above. And I have this set for my Z9, an 800 millimeter lens in portrait mode. Okay, and what this is telling me is when I'm going to my black pen. Where's my black pen? There's my black pen back here. And you can see the width see how the width has changed? Okay, that's your field of view. That's what you'll see through your viewfinder with an 800 millimeter at that location at this time. Okay, and so it's very useful when you want to figure out what the size of your object is going to be. And so this is where it gets into, is the moon going to be large enough at this particular focal length under these circumstances? And the short answer obviously is yes, with an 800 millimeter shooting. The further you are away with a longer lens, the bigger the moon's going to be. So, and you can change these by just touching it and then dialing in whatever. And now you'll notice that, well, you had to be kind of watching the screen, but the field of view got actually a little bit wider because I'm now at 500 millimeters as opposed to 800 millimeters. So again, this is a very useful tool to help you visualize how big things are going to be before you get there. Okay. Yeah, the depth of field function is just essentially what this is telling you is what your hyperfocal distance is. So for this particular shoot, in this location, since we have such a great distance, everything that's 3,000 feet on out to 21,000 feet and beyond is going to be in acceptable focus. But for us, it really doesn't matter because we're going to focus on rendezvous, and we're going to focus on the moon. We're going to focus on rendezvous, and then the moon is going to be coming behind it. Okay.
Great question.
So this is PhotoPills 101. Okay. A lot, and I know I threw a lot of information at you, and I really encourage you to this one here.
Yeah.
So this see the lower right hand corner of the map. There's the white with like 2 sheets of paper on it.
Oh, yeah,
So just touch that,
okay.
and then you see. I mean, if you're in the drones, you can do a drone mode, which is more of an aerial view. I never use that. And then you have different settings. I didn't get a chance to do the sun and the moon. We can do that a little bit. We can do that some other time. Normally, you just have this set it at none. And this is also the panel where you can turn on or turn off various aspects of it. So if you're just focused on the moon, you really don't need the sun lines to complicate things. Confusing things. If you want to shoot where the Milky Way is or where the Milky Way is, you turn that on, and then all of a sudden there's the Milky Way, and where the Milky Way is going to be. These lines, these circle lines going out represent, I think it's 10 degrees change in elevation, all the way up to 90. If I remember that, I think that's right. I think it's 10 degrees. So, but I had that turned off because I just felt like that's, but if you're planning a Milky Way shot, then obviously you're gonna want that up and, you know, plan it accordingly. David and I were out at the pedestrian bridge and shot, looking north, up the Snake River to, capture the North Star, or almost capture the North Star. And Star Trails, and then, David turned around and said, "Oh, well, look south." There we had the Milky Way over the bridge, and that's actually a kind of a fun little shoot and a very safe location, obviously. So, okay,
No bears.
no, we just have bicycles coming through with
Yeah.
their headlights,
Yeah.
and but you know, you're pointing away from them, so it really isn't a problem.
Where do you talk?
The pedestrian bridge, Wilson Bridge, going across the Snake River.
From our phone going to.
Oh, the art farm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that bridge.
Yeah, that bridge,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
And it's been on my bucket list, and so he said, "Well, let's go." It's a fun little place.
So do you get the Milky Way over the water then, over the Snake River?
We
Because you
did.
Get the other bridge in the way. didn't you?
Yeah, and you get a lot of car lights, but it was kind of a unique effect. We got the car lights, the tail lights reflecting off the Snake and the Milky Way.
I can show you I
Yeah.
can show you some pictures after this.
Right.
All right.
So anyway, it's a fun place to go, and it's, like I said, you can park right there and you walk 100 feet, 200 feet, you're out on the pedestrian bridge, and, you know, in those little alcoves right there, set up your tripods and, you know, have a blast.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun, and we were out of there by 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
We were done.
Yeah.
That would be.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I need to
Stop share, yep.
all of this.
And yeah, everybody online, give us a minute. We're gonna reconfigure. I don't know if anybody can hear me, but
Okay, so. That should.
Thank you very much for wading into all of that,
oh, okay. What was your name?
Ann Ruddle.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, and, yeah, sure, yeah, and, just, we just scratched the surface.
Oh, I absolutely am sure of that.
So, but,
There
the
we go.
PhotoPill user guide, I highly recommend that.
And I'm sure this all works really well on your, is that gonna be?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is that the-
Yeah, Raphael is at.
So for the
New York.
people out online, just let me know if you can hear me, okay?
So he's, and he's.
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Well,
all right.
I hope they hear me. If it's somebody online can tell us if, or
I
turn your
can hear you,
video and give me a
David.
thumbs up.
I can hear you.
From who? Oh, okay, great, thanks. All right. We're gonna start moving pretty quickly. I'm gonna go over a couple of things that piggyback right off what Barney was just working on here. So let's see if I can move that out of the way. So shooting, when when we go out to shoot the moon, it's dark, and it has I think it mentally throws a lot of people, because even if you're out there at the dead of night, you think it's dark, but actually the moon is this giant rock in the sky, and it's in full sunlight, and it's reflecting just like a big rock in the middle of the day. So you have to kind of understand there's a big dynamic range when it's really in the dark. In the daytime, there's less dynamic range, but the reflecting light from the moon didn't really change that much. So, and it's also moving. So when you're doing your planning, you've got to get your time right, and also be prepared to, depending on the length of your lens, how quickly it's going to move out of your frame. the longer your lens, the quicker it's going to move across the frame, which might change your exposure settings. And and because it's so bright, you want to keep in mind how to balance the exposure if you want something in the foreground. So, and so what I've done here, there's a lot of ways to do this. If you can make a spot meter in your camera, you can just meter the moon directly. Especially if you have on a telephoto, you know, you can zoom in, even if you're going to shoot a wider angle shot, take a reading off of the moon and you'll, take a look at it and then you can adjust. Your other way of doing it is just to bracket a few shots again, and then do your chipping on the back of your camera and say, did I get close with what I want? So, with our mirrorless cameras now, or if you're in live view on a mirrored camera, you can sit there and just adjust the exposure and see if you're in the ballpark where you want to be. Or you can use this cheat sheet I put up here. So, and I take that thing with a little bit of grain of salt, but anyhow, so let me, oops, I don't know if I'll stop sharing on that. And let's see, we're going to try something. Oh, I don't, hang on. All right, so everybody sees that. Oh man, screen gets. Okay. So this shot right here, if you look at it, it was shot at f8, and you can see, well, I'm sorry, it's the wrong shot. So if you look, I know it doesn't show it, but it was shot at f8 because it's an old fixed lens, but ISO 200 at 125th of a second. So even though everything else is dark, the moon's properly exposed. And you can see, here's a daylight shot. Don't know why I can't get rid of that. But anyhow, if you look, it's almost identical exposure. It's just slightly lighter, but you got the sky correctly. And you could have darkened it down a little. I could have used the exact same exposure for this shot. Again, they're just two shots of the moon. Hang on. But for something of a little different example, here was a moon set with the sun coming up. So just exactly what Barney was talking about. There's still enough ambient light to light up the Tetons. And I had planned it to see the moon set in this notch. But if you look, this exposure isn't that much different. I just balanced it out to get the mountains to light up. So it's always, the moon's always brighter than you think. And especially when, when you're doing these shots like this, you want to balance the foreground and the moon. But a full moon or a near full moon is going to be near that first example I gave you.
That's one picture.
Yeah, that's just one picture. I just went over there and went, I'm gonna line it up in this notch and I'm gonna set here and wait for it to set. So I shot a series, but but if you look, the exposure on the full moon is still almost identical to that very first in the middle of the night shot.
You were using your cheat sheet to start and to get from the ballpark.
Yeah, actually, what I was doing is because I'd shot the moon before at night and I went, I'm just gonna start there at F8 at 125 at 200 and go, oh, look, this looks good. And then shoot a couple of shots before it hit right here. And
Amazing.
yeah,
Same settings at night.
That is amazing.
yeah.
But the moon stays the same.
Well, when you were standing there looking at this, did it feel like nighttime or did?
No, it was the blue hour. I mean, well,
Kind of golden.
yeah, it was about, the sun's just coming up and lighting up the snow. And that's why it's got that pinkish orange cast to it. But I'm watching the moon and watching this and going, if you look back at what's the famous Ansel Adams shot, Moonrise over Hernandez? He was having to use a view camera and he knew he had a limited amount of time and he actually did the same thing. I've shot the moon before. I know exactly what the exposure value is. So he just shot it for that. But so he didn't lose the light on the cemetery and the crosses.
Did you use PhotoPills to figure out when the moon was going to be in your notch?
I did.
Okay.
So, but the exposure, I just got out there and went, look, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to start with this exposure for the moon and then try to balance it with the foreground. So what happens to you when you shoot something where it's far away? Here, I thought it was kind of cool. I was actually waiting for some elk, but I went, oh, the cloud and the Teton, like the Grand looks pretty nice. But if you look at the exposure, it's quite a bit different, but in some ways it's not. And what I had to do was darken the moon a little, but I wanted the foreground to show up. But it's not that far off if you really looked at, a matrix of those exposure values. So
Is this a setting moon?
yeah, it would have been setting. So, but you can see, I wanted, if I'd have just exposed, if I hadn't paid attention, what would have happened was, you'll blow the moon out on these wide angle shots all the time. Because you'll get the exposure here and you won't pay attention. So you've got to go, oh, where's a happy medium? So I can adjust the foreground later, but not have the moon totally blown out and I can't recover.
So you kind of expose the foreground again.
Yep. And I took a few shots and I was sitting there and again, I had to zoom back, but I was actually in a hide trying to wait for some elk. So, but I thought, well, this would be the only cool things happening because the elk aren't here. So anyhow, so when you're again exposing for the moon, think about how you're going to balance, the foreground and the moon, but always remember it's going to be closer to that exposure value, that base, like I shot in that first picture over here, that you think. Now, again, it's going to change a little as it becomes more and more of a crescent moon. But still, it's easy with modern cameras to take a quick and go, am I in the ballpark? Because otherwise it's so easy to blow the moon out in any other kind of, any shots.
It looks like there's cities.
Oh yeah. All right. So now we're going to kind of move off from that and then let's see. Oh, so we're going to talk about focus stacking now. So I think we'll stay there. So let's see if this works. Oops. There we go. Wait a minute. I'm not sure I'm sharing it to everyone else. Hang on. Hopefully everybody online sees a mirrored screen from an iPhone.
Yes, I see that.
All right. So starting the discussion about focus stacking, one of the things you can do in PhotoPills is to go into this depth of field preview. And this is really important to understand when you start to do any kind of photo stacking. And like Barney was explaining earlier, you can set your camera. So I have mine set on an R5, which is a full frame camera. Right now I have a 50mm lens in there at f/22, and distance to the subject is 10 feet. So if you look, you'll see your depth of field is 48 inches in front of that. And I mean, 48 inches and then 44 inches behind. And so the subject distance is 10. And what's really important to remember, oops, where'd we go? Our screen went away, huh?
Now it's back.
All right, now we're back. So the depth of field changes with the length of the lens, the size of the sensor, and our f-stop. So if we suddenly go sit here and go, let's change that to 2.8. You can see the depth of field shrink dramatically. And if we change the lens or the distance, as you get closer, you can see our depth of field now is like 1 inch. And it gets dramatically as you start to shoot macro shots. And if you have a very wide open lens, like let's say you had a f1.2 lens, if you're up close on someone, I mean, you literally get an eyelash in focus and the ears and their nose will be out of focus. So these things change. You can use the PhotoPills to get some idea how this moves. And what's really important here is if you look at this part right here, this depth of field, if you're going to do focus stacking and this distance is going to change, you're going to have some overlap on this depth of field for the software you're going to use to combine them to actually work. So you could have, let me just make a big change here. I'll move this out to, let's say 5 feet. You see, well, you've got a 6-inch depth of field, but if you suddenly have another subject that you want them both in focus, and it's 50 feet away. If we had gone back to another screen, you'd see that this part right here, between this line and this line, if we could have that other screen up here, there would be no overlap. And it'll be very hard. Sometimes the software will fail because it can't find, a way to keep two things and, make everything look like they're both in focus. Does that make sense? It's sort of like when you do a panorama, if you don't overlap your depth of fields for your distances. So some of the software you'll get an error code, or it'll just say, well, we're gonna get to that. So okay. Yeah.
When you're doing this, you almost want to take a lot of images at your closer range and then fewer images
Yep.
as you go back farther.
Yep. And okay, let's
Set it to take the pictures
Uh,
and then it just.
no,
takes the
No.
pictures.
no. Okay, we'll get to that just here in a second. Well, okay, so Barney, would you turn the lights on? Because I'm playing some light for this. I know y'all won't see the screen as well here, but yeah. Give me just a second here. Uh, oh. I'm gonna have to do this again. Okay. I don't, oh, here it is. There we go. So what we're gonna do here. All right. So now y'all are seeing my camera. So if you were just gonna do this manually, you could literally take a focal point here and take one there and take two shots. I mean, you can, and then you would have those, and we'll go into how you combine them in just a minute. That probably would work if I made the f-stop a little lower. Well, greater depth of field. So a bigger number. How's that? Yeah. All right. But anyhow, so what if you're doing from a big landscape, it's probably pretty easy to pull off with 2 or 3 or maybe 4 images. But as you get closer and closer, you're going to need more and more images to make it smooth so that the software, whether using Photoshop or something else, so that it can detect those focal points and blend everything together properly, especially if there's a lot of other things in the picture. They might actually blend, but then you'll get some weird artifacts. You'll really see some oddities like, oh, that's in focus and this is focus and something in the middle is out of focus. So, so before we jump into the software, I mean, any questions about the depth of field and how we use PhotoPills? can help you figure those things out. When you're out in the open, you can, oh, I think was the other thing I was going to point out here. Let's see. I've got it set at F8, but you know, if we were to go down to F22 and do this, but then hit the depth of field, you can see we could almost get it in focus that way. So another thing when you're doing those shots, I add a little depth of field so you get that overlap you're looking for. And we could use this to take some shots and demo that, but let's not right now. So we're going to go back to Lightroom here. So what I did earlier, I took a shot of an apple and a lemon, and you can see this one's in focus. Did not change it on the screen. Oh, I know what I was going to do. Oops. Yeah. This one, let me, actually, I made sure the stem was in focus. So this one is at the front of this apple. This is on the stem. And this was with the lemon. And you can see, well, it's awfully bright on this screen. But anyhow, once I combine them, we got, oops, wrong one. Where did my, well, what we'll do is just do them over. So if you were going to use Photoshop, you can start in Lightroom, select those 3 images, and say,
I think you want to grab the last one too, where the back
open
lemon.
as layers in Photoshop, right? That. And what you would do is select, get all loaded. So you get select all 3, oops, edit, and you do auto align. And I've just got it set on auto, do this. And once it goes through its little process, go back to edit, say auto blend. And here you want to say stack images, not panorama, and then hit OK.
What do you do? I did research on this with my camera manual,
Okay.
and it said to use 100 images. The example I used was 100 images, but it didn't tell me what software to use to combine them. I got
Okay.
that happen in a camera.
What camera do you have?
Nikon Z8.
Okay. Maybe I have to refer to Barney. I can tell you on the new Canons, they have a focus stacking feature inside, and I can show you how it works. Again, it's the same principle. You know, if you're really close, so on the Canon, you can select, obviously you select your f-stop and stuff.
Mhm.
You put it on the closest focal point, and you can then tell it, I want 25 images. Smooth them, and it'll do, once you hit go, it just, it moves towards infinity. And you can ask it to either process in the camera and it'll give you a JPEG, or you can just save them and output them and then take them into another piece of software. So one of the things I want to point out when you're using Photoshop It's worked really well with a few images. There's a limit in Photoshop. If you get too many images, you'll run into a size issue that it won't save. So then what do you do?
Photoshop.
Right.
Photoshop, yes.
And
Whereas
so,
if you do it in the camera, you need about the JPEG.
well, I don't know what on everybody's camera, but on the Canons, if you just say save it inside, it's going to save it as a JPEG, which you may not want, which I didn't want, but
It does, I mean, it does say, do you want to save as a JPEG?
yeah. So,
With a Nikon, with the D8, D7, D60. So, you can go ahead and collect your 100 images, and you can do that in RAW. And then you can take them, load them into Lightroom, make any adjustments that you need to, make sure you synchronize that across all of those. And then you can either export that to a program called Teton Focus Stacking, which is kind of like Premiere. It does an absolutely amazing job. Or you can put them into Photoshop. If you put them into Photoshop and then you go through this blending process, what you want to do before you save anything then is you're going to have one image at the top of your stack, delete everything down below. You're not throwing those, you're just deleting them out of Photoshop. They're still in Light. Your raw images are there. You just have your stacked image, which then you can save as you take PSD.
And the stacked image is going to be on the top right.
Stop, yeah.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm going to show you this in just a second. So,
But the key is delete all of those images down below because you're probably sitting with a 4 or 5 gigabyte file size at that
Yeah.
point. And you don't need any of that stuff.
yeah, and I don't know how the Nikon does it, but on the Canon, it just keeps shooting out to infinity. So you got to kind of look at them because there's going to be a bunch of them that might be blurry at the end. And you go, oh, I don't need anything past here. Because I've sometimes set it up for 25 shots and only needed 10 or 15. But again, that's kind of a quirky thing in the Canon.
With the picture you want, or does the camera figure that out itself?
What width? What do you mean?
Well,
I mean, it's going to shoot on the
the
frame.
amount of space in each image, 'cause you're gonna go
Look,
backwards, right? You're gonna take one in the front like you did with your apple, and then you're gonna take a bunch of slices back till you get to the end of your.
again,
For the Nikon users, when you do that, it's, you kind of get a feel for it. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to do it. So we actually have a member, Ray Tice, who shoots a lot of flowers, and he uses a lot of focus stacking for that. And so depending upon how complex, how big the flower is, he might have 300 images, but he rarely shoots less than 200.
With the Z cameras, is there a setting when you set it to focus stack that you can tell it like how much to move the lens, basically, how much to move the focus?
Yeah.
On the old 850, there was a way you could say minimum or max, there was a slider basically that said,
I think there is.
Yeah.
It's been, I haven't done, I think I've done just 1 or 2 focus stacks with the 8 and 9. And those were some time back, because I'm pulling on my D850.
yeah, with the D850, there is a way to set what you're talking about. And I'm assuming there is in the Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
but yeah, a lot of people can't hear what we're talking about there. So, but yeah, we can talk about a couple of camera specifics. Maybe we get finished here, but I just started up. This is Helicon Focus. So, it has the ability to, you can dump a bunch of images in here that you've already taken. You can go pick them up, or it'll even do camera control like I was doing before. And it lets you set a start and a stop and how many images you want to take, and you can move the increment, and it's got all kind of settings about smoothing, you know. So let me, not terribly, I don't know. Yeah,
Oh.
but let me do this. I don't think we have time to probably go through that. It's a little, kind of like PhotoPills. You need to play with it a little, but
Have things set up, and we were gonna take them.
well, we can do that, but but I mean, I know we've got people online though, and they can't see what we're doing, but I want to show you something real quickly. So. Okay, here we go. Let me share this screen real quick, wherever we are. So here's a whole series of shots I took using the software in the camera to execute taking the photos. And you can see there's quite a few of them here. All right. I'm going to do a quick look, and it's this knife. And you can see right here, just the tip is in focus. And as I move, we're going to step through each one of the photos. You can see I don't know if y'all can catch it.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
The focus is moving.
Did you do that?
No, I did the focus stacking software in the camera, but I didn't want it to save a JPEG because I wanted to be able to adjust things more. But I set it at the point of the knife and went take 50 images, and it just moved on. Huh?
Helicon focus.
Helicon Focus could have done it. In this case, I did it with the cameras, the Canon focus stacking app. And it just moved all the way out, and it actually focused way past this point. Okay. All right. So we'll just keep going. And you see the front gets blurry, but so you can see there's when they're all combined. And then I did some other editing to take out all the background and make it a black and white. But the point is, that's how many photos I had to take, which was probably around 50 just to get this 5 or 6 inch long knife that was actually probably only had 3 inches of depth to get it all in focus.
And you still needed that many, just with 3.
Yeah. I think I was probably shooting an f8. We could go back and look. Yeah. I mean, as you get closer and closer, it just gets like, yeah, and exactly. I mean, it's just physics. The depth of field just gets smaller and smaller. And what Barney was saying about Ray, I mean, I don't know. You've shot some. Did you use 200 images ever? And
No,
no.
I've always had trouble with Photoshop. With landscapes, it kind of tweaks out sometimes.
Well, that was the other thing. When you do this, any kind of movement is going to mess you up. And so when you're outside in the wind and you say, I'm going to do a bunch of photo stacking, if everything's moving, that doesn't work. It's the same problem when you have with the panoramas. Yeah. Yeah. And when you're anything up close, if it moves, and I'll show you another little, let's see if we can go back. Close that down. Oops. There we go. Um, where's my? Oh, I'm in Photoshop, sorry. Um, yeah, here we go. What I was going to show you is I did a little shot on this salt shaker and this apple, and they were quite far apart. And when I combined them, look at this weird little artifact I got because they were too far apart and it was only 2 shots. That isn't in either picture, but the software is trying to go, oh, wait a minute. What do you want me to do? And that was using Photoshop. So, but it was like, I don't know, it saw something that it didn't know quite what to do with, and it created that. So you've got to look at your images, and the more you have, that's why when you don't have that good overlap, because I had those quite far apart and just took 2 images and did a quick one, and this is what you wind up with. So, yeah, you can see in either image that's not there. I mean, there's no. So anyhow,
So David, the takeaway here, one of the takeaways is that your f-stop, you don't necessarily want to be shooting wide open.
you don't want to shoot wide open, but you also maybe not want to stop down because you get other problems called diffraction effects. You know, you do affect the image quality when you stop down too far.
Is that too far?
Depends on your camera. So, but
Yes, no.
no,
But-
F8's probably not too far. But I mean, if you start getting down to like F32 and you're trying to, I want a super sharp stacked image, and well, you're going to get some other, aberration. I mean, because of the way light bends around a small hole, and there's actually a calculator for that. It all depends on the size of your pixel. And so diffraction, if you have a higher resolution camera, the diffraction effect comes into play sooner. So 45 megapixels, it's around 5.6. When you're shooting at 25 megapixels, f8 is where so as you stop down more and more, you get other problems. But yeah, a lot of variables. So you just, and some of it is what Barney or Tim was saying, sometimes you just got to play with it. Like the software that's in the Canon camera, they didn't give a lot of explanation. They're just like, here, set this focus point and set how many images you want. And you're going, okay, you still have to apply some thinking. Is this a wide angle landscape shot or is this a macro shot? And the first few times I did it, I immediately went and looked at the last image it took, and it wasn't sharp. Well, it would shoot all the way out to infinity. And actually, on some of the lenses, it would shoot past infinity. And I'm like, well, these aren't, I realized quickly, okay, you just got to throw away, you got to look at what was my farthest point I wanted and what was the closest point I wanted, and go, okay, let's not worry about processing any of that stuff. So
That's one of the things that Ray stresses.
yeah,
He takes 200 or 300 images, but he may only use 40% of them in the stack.
all right. I don't know if anybody's out there in internet land that's still with us, but if you have a question, let us know. I said there was one chat.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
very interesting.
we
Thank
had
you.
too much going on. Oops. Oh. Anyhow, so if there's a Canon shooter here, I can show you what it looks like on the back of the camera, what they asked, but I'm sure the Nikon's fairly similar. You just,
Yeah, I don't know about the new Z
Yeah.
cities, but I would imagine there's some settings in there.
Yeah.
There's usually like 2 settings, like.
But all of this, I mean, the photo pill thing is real helpful. You know, if you have a good idea of the way the physics works, you can kind of do it all in your head. But if you're like, man, something's messing me up, well, go look at that and go, oh, look what I did. I got the depth of field. I took 3 shots and none of them overlap. Well, it's going to probably mess up your shot, your image.
Take it on total manual, everything. Total manual ISO and manual aperture, manual.
Well,
shutter speed.
it depends on what I'm trying to do. I mean, like the knife picture, I don't want the exposure changing, so I set that, but then that's pretty much all manual because you've got it well lit and it's not moving. But you can also mess up yourself when you're doing landscapes by not doing manual. But sometimes I just, I still leave it on aperture priority and just go, I'm just going to take that picture and that picture and that picture. And the software does an amazing job of blending it all together anyhow. So it kind of depends how much time I'm willing to spend and how quick, if I'm in a hurry and go. And, well, you do want to look at that though, because if you do change a focal point, it may change your exposure dramatically, depending on where you move your focal point. And because then your camera may think, oops, you're wanting me to, I mean, depending on the metering system you have in your camera, it may suddenly go, oh, that's very bright. I'm going to darken everything down. And now you got 2 widely varying exposures. So, well, even if you do it on manual and you move your focus point and you suddenly go, oh, look, I'm poorly exposed. But the real answer is, do they look like they're similar exposures? Yeah. But if you want to set one up,
Well, like
it's getting late. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay. But if you are going to do, I don't know what, depending on the size of your files, Photoshop will hit a limit and then go, I can't save anything bigger than this. And so when you're doing like especially a lot of macro or extreme numbers, you have to use something like the Helicon focus, and it takes a little playing with. And again, you can actually use it to control the camera if you want, and it does a little differently. It sets a focal start and a focal end, and then how many in, and then it's got all kind of questions to answer. Like, do you want me to smooth this using this method or smooth it using that method? And then it'll save them and then it'll process them all for you. And they've got multiple ways of processing, but then it'll usually save them as a TIFF file. But then once you get them, boy, they're
It's the true panel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Serious in this, we will do.
I mean, if you're just doing hey, I want to get the fence in my landscape, I just do it manually and do it in Photoshop, as long as the wind's not blowing. But I mean, if you're trying to do like the thing with that knife, I think I tried it. I take 6 or 8 shots and Photoshop threw up immediately. And yeah.
It's too much of the Photoshop.
Well, and it's a 45 megapixel file. All of a sudden you've got 6 or 8 of those, and it hits, what is it, a terabyte limit, or I can't remember what the limit is. It comes up with some number and says you've exceeded this. We can't save anything bigger than this. You're like, thanks a lot.
It switches formats.
Yeah.
It will switch formats.
Well, that's true. It will save it as a D and G, right?
But you just get around that by just getting rid of all those other layers, which, once it's stacked,
Yeah.
get rid of them all, and then you're back to your 50 or 100, 295.
So it flattens it. Is that why you can do everything that it do?
No, basically, I mean, you're basically, you're flattening it.
Stacking it.
So is there anybody out there still? Huh?
I'm here, Cindy.
If anybody in the internet out there has a question, now's your last chance, and we're gonna hit end.
That was great.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys.
A lot of